Wearing the Jersey, brought to you by WVU Medicine.
I traveled a lot for wrestling, a lot out of state because, I mean, nothing against West Virginia, but at the time, you know, I was a little bit better than most of the kids in the state, so I needed to go somewhere where I would, you know, get better and I could keep continuing to grow in wrestling. So I would travel to PA and Ohio and across the country to other places, just trying to, you know, get better. The 133 pounder for Ohio State's name's Johnny DeJoyous, and I've known him, you know, again, youth connection. We wrestled when we were littler. Through him is how I met Corey Stainbrook, and you know, I had a relationship with him, and one of my best friend who goes to Ripley, Adam Beechek, he was wrestling for Kryptonite at the time. We were both juniors, and they were just like, they wrestled at Disney together junior year, and senior year came along, and they were like, you know, why don't you just come up with us, come to the practices. So I started coming up there. Kryptonite's located at St. Vincent St. Mary High School. So I just started going out there, going to the practices, and I was like, you know, I'm just gonna go with this team, wrestle on Team Ohio, because that year, Team West Virginia didn't have anything for Disney. And I needed to go somewhere where I could get recruited and be on a big scene. So I was like, you know, Disney Duels is a good place for me to go, and I'm going with a high-powered team, so I'm gonna get looks from big colleges. After that, it like exploded with wrestling. I started getting offers from a lot of different schools, and I started taking my visits, going different places. I think I visited Maryland, Virginia Tech, Virginia, where else? Appalachian State, where I ended up going. It wasn't App that I wasn't happy with. I loved the community. I loved the place. It was beautiful in between the mountains. And honestly, the wrestling wasn't horrible either. It's just, you know, I didn't get along with the head coach at all, and there were some reasons. You know, I had medical issues that were pretty serious that they didn't take serious. I had to make a decision, and personally, I was getting to a state there where like I didn't love wrestling anymore, and I dreaded going to practice. I just called my parents, and it was just out of blue, and I was just like, you know, I have to do something. I was like, I'm literally becoming depressed here. And it was hard. It was one of the hardest things I've done because, you know, I called and my mom's crying and she's telling me, you know, you need to just wait it out. And I knew, I knew there was nothing good for me, you know, there anymore. I decided to pretty much withdraw from school at App, like the 28th of December. And for my transfer, the only way that I would get a release is if I started at another 4-year college before the next semester. So the next semester usually starts like January 14th, something like that. So I had 14 days to transfer and get on a wrestling team, or I had to set out a whole year. You know, that would be a great fit for me. A new coach, you know, Jake and Corey are always talking about, you know, how intense he is and, you know, how great of a coach, great of a person he is, and that the whole staff's like that. And I was like, you know, I get to go home, I'll be around my parents more. I don't know where else I can go in 14 days, honestly. I don't. And I can't talk to anyone, because when I transfer, I can't have anybody talk to anyone for me. I couldn't talk to Sammy, I couldn't talk to anyone. You know, the only people I could talk to was Corey and Jake. And so I just had to pretty much do everything on my own, you know, tell them like, I'm coming, I gotta get a hold of Jen, the advisor, I gotta get all my stuff transferred. It was honestly probably the craziest 14 days, harder than I've ever worked in college, getting a transfer done that fast, I'm telling you. I got here and I had nowhere to go, you know, it was so fast. And luckily, Corey, you know, he's a great person. You know, he let me crash on his couch it was supposed to be a short time. For about 7 months, I was living out of my car and like 3 totes in Corey's house, and then he moved, so I just moved with him.
There we go.
There it is. So 1 minute and 35 seconds in, and Dylan Cottrell
with the
earns the fall for WVU, number 17 in the nation.
Like I said, I was literally laying at my old school in my bed, and I was just like, you know, a million things going through my head, like, what am I gonna do next? And it was overwhelming and scary at the time. And that was a big thing in my head, like, what if I make this decision and I'm not successful where I go? And, you know, it was the worst thing. Luckily for me, that's not been the case at all. I've been here, and, you know, I feel like I'm really starting to really get comfortable here, get comfortable in Sammy's system. I feel like I'm wrestling the best I've, you know, ever wrestled right now, which is perfect. So it ended up being a great decision for me.
Wearing the jersey, brought to you by WVU Medicine.